This is Jean Young, and I'm going to call this meeting of the Finance and Property Committee to order. To my right is Andrew Kirkpatrick, who is Secretary of the Committee, and to his right is Chad Worrell, member of the committee. And if everyone else would please introduce themselves, folks watching at home.
I'm Merlin Jeffrey from Quality Foods IJ.
Tim Sarsi.
Shane Blazer.
Zach Ruin.
Jim Borski.
Scott Young.
Tim Chris from the Humane Society.
Bridget Cheriton with the Humane Society.
Gus Mancuso and Courage.
All right, thank you very much for being here. So we'll get started. Any? There were no specials, so item 3 is an application for a Class A liquor and beer license filed by Merlin Jeffrey, DBA Quality Foods IGA, for the premises located at 1021 West Grand Avenue. Can I see the file?
Certainly there you are.
I'm assuming everything's in order, Chief?
That's right.
So is this just a transfer then? Oops.
I'll be purchasing the business.
So that's what I wondered. Well, congratulations.
You okay? I'll make a motion to approve the application. Oh, sorry.
I have a first and a second to approve the application. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
None opposed? Good luck.
Thank you.
It's a good business, so.
Good donuts.
It's what?
Good donuts.
Donuts, there you go, see?
That's right.
You already got an endorsement on
I like
TV. Good donuts.
Keep it coming.
You enjoy them.
Item 4 is renewal applications for a secondhand article dealer license filed by Eco ATM Inc., 555 West Grand Avenue. Again, everything's
These
in
are,
order.
yearly renewals.
So we'll take these separately. Any discussion on item 4A?
Take a motion to approve. Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, none opposed. So 4B is a pawnbroker, secondhand article dealer, and secondhand jewelry dealer license filed by Eway Sales LLC, 3511 8th Street South.
As always, I just mentioned that John Reuter is a friend of mine. We've known him for a lot of years, but not affecting my decision tonight.
Senior, I guess Jonathan's.
Junior, yeah, would be about my age. Senior's father.
Okay.
They're partners or whatever you want to say.
Any other discussion?
Motion to approve. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, none opposed. Item 5, oh, I always have a hard time saying this. A special events application filed by Southwood County Humane Society for their Super Snow Sculpture Spectacular on January 25th from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. to include vending and use of the parking lot and grounds of the Centralia Center and Riverwalk. And that seems to be an annual event also,
Correct.
doesn't it?
Yep.
So Bridget, did you want to talk about that at all, or just?
This is just our annual application for snow sculpture. It is January 25th, in which we use the parking lot at the Centralia Center for our teams to sculpt their blocks of snow. And then inside we serve soup, we have goodies, bakery, there's music, raffles, etc.
And as of right now, Jim, it looks like we may have some snow. We can start piling up for them, right?
So far, so good.
Any discussion regarding this item? Hearing none, I entertain a motion.
Motion to approve, sir.
I have a motion and a second to approve the special events application. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, none opposed. Item 6, a request from Jim Borski to review quotes for 2 1/2-ton pickups for DPW. Jim?
Put out a request for proposal to the 3 local dealers.
Thank you.
And
Good luck. I hope weather's good.
got 2 back. I guess I would just recommend we take the low qualified bidder, which would be Rapid Sport this time. And the trade-in value they show us on our old trucks is probably as well as we're gonna do on auction site, so let's do it with trade-ins.
Discussion?
Just curious, Mayor, I know last budget, you were concerned about the types of vehicles that Foreman's and supervisors are driving around in for fuel economy and this and that. You're okay with these purchases?
Well, this is the first I've seen the quotes, and Jim did make me aware that he was going to bid to get some bids on it. And I guess I would ask if you could inform the committee and myself options and maybe some of the
Sure.
pieces on the fuel economy and others.
We typically quoted V8s, and we haven't done that lately. We've dropped down to, I went to V6s and then found out a lot of them, even full-size trucks are coming in 5-cylinder now. But the successful bidder here, the low bidder here is quoting 6-cylinder engine. Otherwise, they're full-size pickups. We did look at alternative fuels. I was at a meeting up in Clover the other day. We're looking at CNG and LNG, and it's just not quite here yet. Clover is opening a station there, but
For Quick Trip, right?
Quick Trip is gonna have a natural gas fueling center, but they don't plan to have any here in Rapids in the near future. So availability of either liquid or compressed natural gas isn't quite here yet. If we were gonna set up a system at the city garage for that, probably talking $700,000 to $1 million. So we are looking into it, it's just not quite time yet.
And that's what we had originally discussed, that based on the timing of a private enterprise, Quick Trip or any other provider to invest in it, that would be a good time to convert fleet as we purchase them, but it
We had
wasn't
talked about downsizing the vehicles.
right sizing, right? So, I mean,
Correct.
getting the right or smaller size vehicle. And I guess Jim and I didn't discuss on this particular purchase, the cost differential, if there was a
Well, nobody makes a small pickup anymore. The Ford Ranger isn't being made, the S10 isn't being made, and Toyota's not making a small one.
I'm not
Colorado's
arguing it, I'm
coming
just saying, I know that there was a discussion about this, so I want to be real clear before we approve it.
The Colorado is coming back next year.
And we had an original conversation about the cost differential between uses, so if he's able to pick up something for a few bucks more, it makes more sense in that perspective. I guess I would maybe make a comment on the trade-in piece. You know, I don't know, Chad, you've had some questions about surplus vehicles and what we do with vehicles afterwards, so maybe it's an appropriate time to have, or ask that question now if you have that question.
I looked them over and I think you just send them on.
Okay.
They're starting to lose sheet metal now, chunks are falling off. Mine's got 182,000 on it, Matt's has got 130,000 or something like that, and they're all city miles.
The question, I guess Chad's question was if there's a higher and better use of a community group that could utilize the vehicle for $1,000 or $1,500, that maybe it'd be a worthy donation or some sort of purchase from them for, you know, what we're getting for a trade-in value. But your feedback is, I mean, they're pretty tired.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's the, I don't, this is out of left field, but what's the stipulation on donations to Rawhide? I mean, they'll take just about anything if you can drag it to them.
Right.
But I mean, when it comes to, you know, like when I donated my car, I got a tax write-off. How does that work in a government agency?
Probably no benefit to us.
No benefit to us. Okay,
No.
so at least you're,
Somebody could buy it for $1,000 and get
Right,
X amount
right.
of tax write-off or something.
Right.
I guess would be the best way to.
fair enough.
Okay, other discussion?
I think it, you know, there's limited for what's out there right now in the market for new stuff, but, you know, I do hope that
Yeah.
that conversation
it's kinda
continues to
cyclical.
take place as it, what's the, these were purchased and you said 99 or they're 99 model
They're
years?
99s, yeah.
So they were purchased probably about 98 or so?
Yeah, I can't tell you exactly what day we put them in service.
Sure.
But, I asked for quotes on this summer, or in April or May, and we were right between model years. Nobody could supply 13s.
Sure.
Nobody had 14s yet. So
Sure.
that's why it's taken so long to get these numbers in.
So these trucks are on about a 10-year cycle then,
10 to
10
12,
to 12,
depending on the miles.
okay.
These went a little longer.
Other discussion?
I'll make a motion to approve Rapids Ford for the purchase of the two half-ton pickup truck.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
So I have a motion and a second to approve. Any other discussion?
When do you take delivery?
30, they said 30 days from receipt of purchase order.
Are you still behind on equipment?
Well, the last thing, the big thing on this, this year's list is a recycling truck, which we probably won't get done before the end of the year, and I know we won't, but otherwise, we're pretty close.
When do you usually come back to us with your proposed replacement schedule? I know you usually
In
come
the
to that.
spring, usually.
Okay. I can remember if we'd seen that this year.
I can give you a 5-year replacement schedule to take it, yeah.
Oh, great.
We added it throughout the
Good.
budget, right?
Good nighttime
Last look
readings.
at it.
Yeah, it's also included in the budget.
Yeah.
Okay, great, thanks.
Further discussion? I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. None opposed. All right, item 7, a request from Fire Chief Dave Kirkman for permission to apply for a 2013 Assistance to Firefighter Grant through FEMA. Scott?
Do you guys have a copy of this from Chief Kirkman?
Nope.
Kind of a little letter he has for you, so you couldn't use it tonight. Again, we do this every year. We apply on the FEMA for an AFG grant. This year we targeted replacing our frontline engines, SCBA's, at a cost of approximately $121,500, which federal government pays 95% of it, about $116,000. So Dave has the grant written out, ready to submit.
Right.
I'm just looking for,
So you've applied for this before. Obviously, you just said that. Have we been successful as a city in the past?
yes.
And what have we purchased with?
We have purchased,
Exhaust system.
exhaust system was purchased. We have a washer,
Wasn't it
a
something?
washer, a commercial washer for our turnout gear, a dryer for our turnout gear. That was together. The exhaust system was quite expensive. We got, it seems every 2 to 3 years we're successful.
Okay.
In the year, last year we applied for those medium pressure airbags and we were turned down.
So you're looking for breathing apparatuses, face pieces. So the city portion, just for the record, would be $6,072.
Yes.
Tim, we're good for the 6,000?
Yeah, we have
If
that
we're successful,
fire equipment
that-
outlay
right,
where
outlay
the
it,
stuff would
right.
normally be purchased, so we'll take the matching.
I don't see why we wouldn't do it.
Oh, no.
And as you see in here, regardless if we get the grant or not in 2018, they will be
You budgeted
10
for
years
it?
old and will need to be replaced, so
Okay.
according to NFPA rules. So it'd be, a great grant to receive.
So you were trying to get ahead of the 2018 curve and
Right, yeah.
We'd
It lets
put
us
this-
plan a little better. If we get it, we can,
we'd put those out
money.
on market then, or
Yeah, well, they're not sellable.
they're not so, okay.
I guess the department could use it for probably 3-4 years and then they would be removed.
Backup training stuff
Yeah,
or something.
yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve your grant request.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve item number 7. Any other discussion? When is, you said the grant's ready to go, so when's it due?
December 6th, I think, is the last day it can be submitted, so it has to be this week.
So we don't have to wait for full council approval, right? I think with grants, if I remember from Sue, I think we have final say with that.
To accept it, I would imagine.
Okay.
But-
If I remember, because
That's my
this came up
understanding.
at a council meeting, so, okay.
Especially because I think that's a point worth repeating, is that this isn't additional equipment, it's equipment that's
It's
already.
replaced, yeah.
It's already equipment
Right.
that, right, that we have on
Draw that
schedule.
distinction, yeah.
Right. So again, a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, none opposed. Thank you. Item 8 is a request from municipal court judge Peter Kastenholz that municipal court fees be adjusted to reflect any increase as may be allowed by state law. See attachment 1. So my understanding is that this would be $10 right now?
Correct. Something like normal. I know a little bit about this when the municipal court judge approached me, not judge, but the clerk there, Karen, and that the state did allow the increasing the maximum fee from $28 to $38 for a court cost that's passed on to people that receive a citation. And so that's what they're requesting.
Can you give me a little history? I mean, how often do those fees go up? I'm a little nervous
It's been a
just giving a
while.
blanket anytime the fees go up, we're automatically going to.
It's been a while, but I guess what's good about the fee is that the cost for like Karen's position.
Right, I understand.
But I can't remember, I think we were trying to find back when the fees were increased, and
You see what I'm saying? If we
Yeah.
pass an ordinance that says every time the fee goes up, next year it goes up $50, year after that, and it never comes back.
I want to say it was early 2000 that it was,
Okay, I am not holding you to a
I think
date.
that's what Sue had said, it was
Yeah.
something, because we had talked
I mean, it
about
makes
that.
sense. I'm just,
Yeah.
You get those briefs from the league of
Mhm.
what impact this could have, and it was 2000.
Yeah, I think it was around 2000 when they did the last fee schedule change.
And are they looking for the increase just because of the amount of time that's passed and then what it costs,
well, what it
costs staff to put it through?
Yeah, and I guess that increase goes to pay for that position.
Okay.
So I guess the more it's almost a user fee, if you want to look at it that way.
Right,
The
right.
people that are receiving the citations are also paying for the position.
I kind of echo what you're, where you're coming from, because I don't want to see it, I don't want to see somebody priced out of, having a say or having a rebuttal.
Well, all of a sudden they
court, you know.
abscond, they don't show up, I can't afford the court costs.
I don't think we should price people out of, their right to have a court date. But at the same time, we shouldn't set it so low that
No,
everybody can.
I mean, I have
flood the
no
court
issue with this
Well,
$10,
deterrent
and
to
it sounds
commit a
like it
crime,
isn't
it sounds like to me, if the cost gets too much. I mean,
Right. Well, I mean.
Really?
You always have your
No,
day.
you're-
I mean, to
wrong.
me,
I'm
that's what I
sorry.
feel.
Yeah, but
Good
they always
for
have your
you.
day in court, no matter what the
Right.
fees are.
Right.
It doesn't matter to your
What are the
average.
county forfeitures? What are the,
I know
Sue
typically,
just says that they're much lower.
recalling from my past, that there are additional fees that if we ran it through the county, that citations would be higher than what they do.
I
is if
remember
you-
that, because I remember.
If you
when
receive
we-
a citation in the city for one offense, it would be lower than if you received it by a sheriff's department.
Right.
A deputy, it'd be,
Because then
it'd be
it's going
higher,
through.
based on different fees that are attacked on the,
I have no issue with the $10, and I think it's very reasonable considering the amount of time that, even from your recollection, I'm just a little nervous about the verbiage, but I guess then, at some point, if it gets too high, then it comes back, right?
If you're interested in hearing it, I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to approve the $10 increase in fees. And actually, technically, that's all we have to really do anymore. I
No,
was gonna say,
the actual
is that by ordinance
ordinance
too?
change
Okay,
says,
well, I make a motion
and
to.
shall be set at the maximum amount allowed by state law. So right now it would be $10, but
Okay.
forever and again.
I'll make a motion to approve the request to increase the court fee by an additional $10, but deny the request for an ordinance change.
But we'll need an ordinance change for the $10 probably, that's fine. So you're saying you're denying
Denying the
the
request.
automatic.
Correct, for an automatic increase based on state law.
it has a specific dollar amount.
If it's
So
only,
then you're just changing the specific dollar amount.
Yeah, why do we need
what kind of
that?
time are we wasting here?
Right, no, I agree.
Just change the specific dollar amount, that's what you want to do.
Right, so, okay, and that does make sense. If this only happens every 10 years, Andrew's point is, well, then we're not wasting a lot of time. Maybe we should review it when it goes up. So I have a motion and a second for Andrew's motion, which is to increase by $10 at this time. So the ordinance will need to be rewritten to reflect that and take out the set at maximum amount allowed by state law. So it'll have to come back if it goes up.
It would,
That's an ordinance change.
we'll have an ordinance to council.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, none opposed. Very good.
Can you send it?
Can we move item 9 to the end? I know you're here, but the other items will be rather quick. That way, they'll be very quick. Beverage operator licenses, A is new. I have a motion to approve the new beverage operator licenses. Which is item 10.
Approved, yes.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Renewals, just 10B.
Motion approved. Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Do we have any applications tonight?
No.
All right, so item C is done. Were there any burning questions about the bills?
I got mine answered previously.
So I'll make a motion to approve the bills. Are you still going through?
Yeah, I'd like to just whip through them quick.
You bet. hold my motion.
Did you? Same page, all right. PD. But I won't have to ask that. But one of us won't.
For the individuals at home, the bills that we're reviewing right now are from November 1st through November 30th.
I'm glad you paid the Arbor Day Foundation. That's what I was looking for.
I wasn't sure if I was.
It's all about trees.
Not to be a member.
Guilt you, been members for like 20 years, I'm sure.
City USA.
$10 or
We
$15.
need a new flag for the pole.
No more trees for you.
Burned it to
Nine.
stake.
Nine.
I'm just gonna go chop them.
In the front yard.
Christmas trees. Chop down all the pines, usually fine.
All right. Everything looks good.
So I made a motion, do I have a second?
A second.
I have a motion and a second to approve and pay the bills.
You need this.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, none opposed. So that leaves us with our final agenda item, which is going back to item 9, which is a request for $20,715.60 from the City of Wisconsin Rapids to help support the Regional Economic Growth Initiative, otherwise known as REGI. So who's here to discuss? Okay, I come up to the table and educate us.
Can Rick and I join you on this side? Is that okay?
Oh, yeah, wherever you find room, absolutely.
Thank you.
I tend to spread, you know how that
Thank you.
goes.
I have the same one.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here again. It's exciting to have a chance to update you on our progress. Rick and I have been making the presentations. Rick Merton is from Courage and also a member of REGI. Jeff Burton in the back is also a member of REGI and is the CEO of ERCO. And so what I'd like to do is, trust me, we will not bore you with the 40-minute presentation that we did back in March. We're going to give you a high-level update as to tell you what's been happening since then. As it's,
Josh, can I
Sure.
provide you a little feedback?
sure,
And I'm doing this, I think the work you guys have done, you're obviously very committed, you're very dedicated, and I applaud you for all your dedication to the community. I received some really specific feedback about your presentation, and I'd like to share that with you. It's really positive. but
Sure.
I want to share that with you. Some are from alders who are currently serving, and some are no longer serving.
Okay.
The one thing that people remember from that presentation very clearly was the slide about how dissatisfied community members are with their elected officials. Nobody likes to pay taxes. Nobody wants to have to do that. So that was another slide. So the feedback I got really was, in the discussions that occurred around that, and correct me if I'm wrong, gentlemen, really where it seemed like that was kind of a heavy-handed. I guess my feeling is, if people were really dissatisfied with their elected officials, we'd have more names on the ballot. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying that out of context, it seemed a little heavy-handed and kind of a low blow. And I need to clear the air on that, because people gave me that feedback, I think, thinking that I would share that with you. So I wanted to do that. Now, again, that's the one thing that a lot of people walked away from that presentation with. So I think it would be really helpful, to have that presentation again, or to have a discussion that refocuses. And people walked away from that thinking, well, since, this is kind of, they don't like us, so we have to do this. And that wasn't the case, because I think you have really good data, really good information to share. But you need to know that more than one or two people conveyed that to me, so.
And those were currently
Some are
serving,
current and some are no longer on.
but they were council members.
At the time.
Okay.
They took that as,
Okay.
okay, wait a minute, what is that supposed to mean?
Sure.
It almost seems like, well, they don't like you, so you have to do this. And I don't think that's the message that we want to send, or you want to send.
Sure. Was there anything more that you wanted to state about that?
No, it was at one piece, and it's like, I wanted to clear the air about it, and. no, I didn't.
What about Chad or Andrew? I mean, any other comments before we start?
No, I liked the presentation. I thought it was good. And just, for my sense on it, I guess I didn't personally feel that way about it. We were kind of coming out of winter the last time, and there was a lot of stuff going on the national political scale. So I think most people, when they say, when they're saying that they're dissatisfied with their elected officials, I think they tend to lump all elected officials together, and they don't really realize, half the time that there are people at the city level that live next door to them that are actually elected officials.
Well, and that's just.
So I guess I can see where somebody, could think that. I personally didn't see that, but, I don't think most people really make a differentiation between all the different levels of government there actually are, so.
Well, I remember the slide.
I do
too.
Absolutely.
And when we put the presentation together, that was one of the questions.
Let me, if I can I just spend a few minutes on that first, so that we can clarify that?
Absolutely.
We spent a great deal of time preparing that presentation, and certainly that was a slide that we spent lots of time discussing specifically. In the context of the presentation, it was also placed in there because it was information that was reflected in the survey that our community took in 2012 in the spring. And one of the four priorities were do something with the economy, openness to new ideas and change, do things to attract young kids and families. And then the fourth one, of course, was the natural resources, and focus on that as the assets. And we were putting that in the context of the vital signs report as well. The vital signs indicated all the data about the lowering of the median incomes and all of the kinds of changes that have been happening in the last 13 years. I think it's also important to note, though, that at the end, we mentioned that those of us in the know realized how difficult your job was. And we have said that continuously throughout the entire presentations at the county level as well. We made the same presentation at the county level and virtually to the 12 or 14 different municipalities. And I did indicate also that it was a sign of the times. It's a part of this displaced anger and frustration and really the lack of trust that lots of people have. And of course, people who are in leadership positions like yourself who want to make a difference become the target for a lot of this displaced anger. And I also mentioned that at the time as well. So the intention was to by no means embarrass or inflict any kind of disagreement with it or anger. It was just a reality of what the world is about. And I think all of us, again, applaud the work that you're doing. And we're trying to work on getting more people to run for
I
office.
know. There'll
We've
be no
got
mistake.
how to run for office, and it's a plug I might as well put in right now.
There you go.
Next week, we're going to have that as well, and we're excited about trying to draw people into the process as well.
And I didn't mean to bring it up to be
No, I'm-
terribly critical, because now your response really puts that in context. It makes a lot of sense. I just know that there are people who are going to be voting
Mhm.
that had that issue. And now that, you're explaining it, you're putting it in context, that might make a difference for them when they're sitting there going, well, the only thing I remember that one slide, and we all did, and there was a lot of discussion about that slide. So I just wanted to get the elephant out,
Well-
let's talk about it, and that, now, the way that you're putting it in context makes a lot of sense.
Well, and I also want to, thank you for bringing it forward so that we could address it.
Because otherwise it would be sitting there, you know how that goes.
Right,
It would be
exactly.
We're really
simmering.
talking about Shane. I mean,
It would be-
let's be frank, we're talking about Shane.
It's all about Shane. But otherwise it
Shane's-
does. And you
Absolutely.
know, and I know that
I
there's
take the bird.
the reality of what people hear, but there's their perception, and if we don't bring it forward, they're just gonna be sitting back there going, I remember that one slide, and really. So I didn't mean to bring up
No.
the negative, but I just wanted
Which
to
is a
share that
great, if I may just add, it's a great segue to lots of the work that's been going on the last 2 years based on relationships and trust and respect, to have those kinds of things brought out in an open way. And the Regional Economic Growth Initiative has really been focusing on bringing lots of people together at a grassroots level, talking about what this community needs. And it's done in this environment that we've just, I think, modeled here and witnessed for everybody here, talking about tough issues and bringing them out and dialoguing them in a respectful way. I think if nothing else, it models what we're trying to accomplish in our community. So again, that's been our focus for the last 2 years since August. And again, we're excited about the fact that we're developing those relationships in a very, very positive way. As all of us know, it's a grassroots effort, and I'll put out this fact sheet in just a few minutes, but I did want to tell you that we have been making the second go-around. We did these presentations and gave that information out to 12 or so municipalities in the community and in Southwood County. Since we've last talked, and yours was the first one, the city was the first one, we had virtually a tremendous amount of support from the county. They passed it through all of their committees, and they passed it a part of their budget. We had some very
Can I
surprising.
ask, how much did the county kick?
The county kicked in 30,500. In fact, I have some of the data.
Yeah, that's some of the stuff
Yeah.
that, it's.
Grand Rapids has put in $7,845. They approved their budget. Port Edwards has approved $2,098. Nakusa was very, very excited about it and very supportive of it. They passed in $1,962. And interestingly enough, we took the risk, and a positive risk, and presented to Pittsville. Now, Pittsville is not necessarily on our initial radar, and Rick was out there. I was not able to attend that night, and they also have contributed. So we're very excited about Pittsville
Outstanding.
putting in, right?
Amazing.
I never would have,
Right. And one of the,
How was it figured out, the percentage, or was it a percentage, or was it
Equalized
just
value.
Okay.
and one of the other interesting things is that there are a couple of different municipalities. Buren has passed the motion for support. Rome has passed the motion for support. Seneca and Wisconsin Rapids have all passed the motion for support, and we're just going through the budgetary cycles for that. What was very interesting about Rome, we reached out to Rome because they're not in our county, but they are certainly on the edge of
They're
it.
a part of that.
And we have a lot of people through
Right.
Nakusa, so they've been very, very interested in participating because they have some assets down there as well that they would like this regional economic leader to be participating in. So
have you had any municipalities come to you about it?
in terms of,
saying, can you get us more information? Can you come down and talk to us? Or, we'd like
Well,
to.
Rome was and Pittsville was. Okay.
So
and
they approached you and said, we'd like to get on board this?
well, we called them and they said, yes, come on out.
Okay.
We don't know anything about it, just
Yeah,
like
they
sure,
were
just
very
like
nice.
anything else.
Sure.
And then, of course, after they heard the presentation and found out that it was a regional approach, because that's really one of the key things here, is we're trying to change the language and talk about it in a regional approach. And I think last week's site certification, I think, speaks to that issue as well, that there's this regional approach that is gaining a lot of steam, both regionally and statewide and nationally, about what we need to be doing. So that's really where we're at. I think the other thing that's been very, very interesting is, since we, speaking of actually reaching out, there was another one that reached out, and that was Marshfield. The council wanted to know about what was going on, and make a long story short, in carrying out this regional approach and carrying out relationship building, we are now meeting quarterly. We went out to the Marshfield and the city council. They were very excited about it. They said publicly to their economic development people that they want this regional approach to be a focus. And now we're meeting quarterly with their regional planners, economic planners, and our regional economic planners, and encourage us, facilitating the discussion to find out how we can bridge the gap, if you will, and focus on our assets. So it's been quite exciting. So enough of the discussion. I have this just a quick highlight, a high-level fast facts, if you will. David, did you want one?
Yes, please. Thank you.
And basically, we've got about 42,000 plus in the pocket right now. And people say, well, what are we going to use this money for? And it really comes down to the analogy or the symbolism of a bridge builder. This person is going to, the person that is hired is going to be in our community focusing on the assets and the plan that we have spent 2 years on regional economic development. I think what's important, and I mentioned this at our presentation in March, or whenever, I think it was March, that we made, this plan is unique in the sense that this is based on assets, and it's based on 18 people getting together over 2 years worth of work on a regular basis and talking about what are the conditions needed to stimulate and to achieve regional economic growth. And so that's what makes this, I think, unique and different than many other plans. Lots of communities have hired regional economic experts and asked them to revitalize their communities. This one is different in the sense that we have spent time building relationships, focusing on our assets, and have a plan of action, a work plan, literally, that's going to help us achieve that. So I will cease and desist on talking right now and let any of you ask any questions.
Well, I think the question that's going to come up, and I believe I know the answer, but for those individuals watching at home or somebody else who might have this question. So we have, and you know the one that's going to be asked, we have a CBB. We have an economic alliance. We have a position that's job really is to work on. So why more? I think, and I know the answer to that, but I think it would be really helpful because people are going to say, well, don't we already do that?
Redundancy.
So, right. So if you could address that issue.
I think certainly right now, if we're going to overcome and focus on a regional development plan, I think it has to be someone that has, number one, the expertise in this kind of area, other than, just doing the Chamber of Commerce kinds of activities. They are connected regionally, statewide, and nationally to assets that can be brought into the community. That's a combination of a couple different. And I think right now, there has to be someone that has the interests of the entire community at heart, if you will. And I think right now, we have, if you look at the chamber does represent, a lot of people, but the image there is basically, local, and it has to be more regional in its approach. And I think, I think that in concert, there are a number of things that the Heart of Wisconsin can do and is going to do in the plan. But they aren't going to be able to do the things that are necessary for us to take a step forward and a leap forward in economic development.
If I can make two comments, I think one first as a member of Reggie, and I look to Jeff in the corner of the room as wearing also a hat beyond ERCO of the Heart of Wisconsin. I think it's a very valid question, Gina, you present.
Well, I just know
many
it's gonna
ask that
come up.
question,
Yep.
particularly for the chamber, the CVB more of marketing and tourism. So
Right,
pull them
I
up.
can,
Right,
right.
But I think
I
a
agree.
piece that we discovered as a challenge and we've overcome it, I think, and it's a continual process within Reggie, is determining what the Chamber of Commerce's role within economic development. And I know their board has been asking that question of themselves as they go through this transition. I think the Finance Committee and the change of the room tax allocation also fostered that dialogue from the city's perspective. And then I take that hat off and then put the elected officials' hat back on. And I think for us as a city, as an organization, it's a conversation we're going to need to have following any sort of commitment we potentially may make to Reggie. What are our staff assets? Where are they best positioned to support regional or economic development, period? And I would say that our economic development individual is probably last of all of their priorities. And unfortunately, that to all of us, it may not seem right, but of all the things that come at that person throughout the day, planning and zoning and permitting, it's the last thing they focus on. So I think this allows us as a municipality, as a member of Reggie, to say to the rest of the community that we're willing to put our eggs in a basket, that this is the first and foremost, and really the only priority of this individual that we intend to hire. So those are the two comments, and maybe Jeff can chime in on the Heart of Wisconsin perspective more so than I can. I'm just, as
Well,
a
I
member
think-
of Reggie.
I think for the Heart and for the chamber, and I currently sit as a secretary on the chamber. We've gone around and looked at the aspects that we as the chamber support with regards to economic development, and some of that is economic gardening and business retention and expansion. And those things are servicing a facet of the community that is within the sphere of the chamber. This, beyond what Gus is telling you, this group, the Reggie group, is still working on structure and still working on the interaction. But one of the things that we've entertained is that it will likely become a broad partnership that will have service providers, if you will. And with the individual that we're talking about, that individual would be kind of the center point, but also would likely report to a board. And with that, then if you looked at an activity and you'd say, okay, here's what we would consider for next year as a deliverable, and they would go to the chamber and say, this seems to be in your area, come in and basically quote this work for us, and let's work on the deliverable. So for this, you're going to do this, and you're going to do it by when. And we can see Mid-State being a part of that, and we can see Encourage being a part of that, where we would partner with all these organizations, including CVB where appropriate, to be able to bring this, to a higher ground, if you will. And if I look at the role, specific to the city, in Adam's role, well, Adam is an asset of the city, working for the city. Adam doesn't work for the county and doesn't work for the region. So he is one of the assets that the city is currently contributing in kind, along with our mayor, who's doing, devoting his personal time, as an asset into this. And then you've got the business community that are with my peers being able to work into this, to be able to look at the other piece of this. One thing that the question that hasn't been asked is that we're also looking for in-kind contributions out in the business community that will equal that ask that we're coming to all of this group. So if you look at a nominal $75,000 annual ask, we're creating a similar opportunity to go out and have that ask and have that commitment from the business community. Everyone's going to have skin in the game. So from that standpoint, I think that to me is what I'd like you to take home from today is that yes, it's a commitment based on the assessed value, which we think is the appropriate way to apply it. But you will have the business community who are very excited about these opportunities, because then we get to also work together in partnership instead of individually, contributing to the community in whatever way is beneficial to us as a business.
So in my world, when we put a plan together, we always talk about the SMART criteria. So, yep, you know what I'm talking about, right? Specific, measurable, is it attainable, is it reasonable, and is it timely? So, or is it time? And I heard you say some of that. So when would we have something that actually said, here's the deliverable, here's when, because that's what I heard you, that's what I got excited about, is when you said, we're not just gonna put some plan together that says, because how many signs have we had in our yards? How many initiatives have we been through? And by goodness, I really can't glom onto a whole lot of what happened. I can some, and I think there's value in just bringing the community together around initiatives. I get that, some of it's not measurable. But by goodness, we're done with those not measurable items anymore. We need something that's going to have that SMART attached to it. So say we pass this, I mean, and you said you're looking to hire somebody by,
We've got a subcommittee that's working on, we've pretty well finalized the job description, going out and recruiting now, basically, hoping to entertain resumes the January through March, having someone in place by May.
Or
June, and that's a tall order, as we all know, if any of us do recruiting in our life. We have a strategic plan, and I would say the next big chunk for us is to get into the tactical plan and be able to have the concept of what we want this individual to start working with us as a group on. And those structural things, it's taken us a long time to get the trust and the common language and the understanding from within the group. And I'm personally very proud of that. And I think that will we be able to come to you with the plan, and the concrete detail before the end of calendar year 14? I would say it would be late in 14, because we would anticipate having this person on the ground in the second half.
I just think it's really important that if we're gonna give money again and dedicate time and resource, that there has to be a measurable outcome. It can't be, here's what we think is gonna happen. There needs to be some type of structure to measure whether or not what we're doing is working, and if not, that's okay. Then we identify it and we tweak it and we do, we move things around. That, just because it's not working doesn't mean it failed, it just means we need to do things a little differently. But if we're not measuring it, and I can't tell you how many times this council has approved monies to be spent on something that we never measure. And I think that's really, hopefully, not
I
happening.
guess I can't speak to what's happened in the past year. All I can say is that we've got a lot of horsepower applied to
It sounds like it.
the folks that you've got that are named on the back of this page, and resources that are unnamed that
Right.
that support us.
that have the same kinds of
Issues, concerns.
intent in their daily lives and in their
Dedication, right.
business lives. They're measuring things all the time. So this discussion is not unusual, and it's very familiar to our work in our groups, how are we measuring this and how are we going to measure it. And I think part of it is bringing this person on board to help us formulate that plan too, but also realizing just what you said, the return on investment. Everyone wants that, and that's a high level.
And I don't mean to sound like I'm just drilling you guys, but I just know that when we go before the full council, you're gonna get, I'm just preparing. Really, I'm here to be helpful.
That's good.
Well, and you're grilling, and don't mind me, I'm gonna throw a couple of barbs at you too. I got 4 kind of things that I've been boiling over here. So this individual term, length of employment, how are we looking? Is this like a 2-year commitment? Because obviously, if this is going to be somebody that you guys are bringing on board, you're not going to be sitting there going, all right, everybody step on board for the first year, and then after that, everybody can step off. So what type of a length?
This is a multi-year investment.
Okay, so
This is
we're
a-
looking on
absolutely.
5 to 10 years worth of
Well,
investment,
it's
or
a-
potentially longer.
Yeah.
For these different municipalities, and I'm not gonna ask, I'm not super concerned with what businesses have come on board with this, but I'm assuming that some businesses have already said, yeah, hey, I'm down with this, we're gonna get
Well, I
on
think
with this.
the part of the association is what we call the Advanced Peer
Peer
Council.
Okay.
So you've got, you look at the names that are
Yeah,
on this
yep.
list, there are players
Certain
in there,
business leaders in
but
there,
we also, there's going to be a tier that through the chamber, we are going to go and ask, for the members, what I would say, small to medium-sized business in our area. So there will be two different asks. One
Sure.
will be at a first tier level, and one will be at a second tier level.
Sure.
And there are philanthropic organizations. There are also the major utilities, like Alliant plays in this territory, and they have foundations. I suspect that the
Oh, sure.
energies have foundations. So we have had these discussions in the group as to how we would go and make the approach, but our priority has been with the municipals.
Okay,
So from that standpoint, there is an anticipation of a long-term commitment. If you're gonna bring in a professional, I would anticipate that it would be no less than 3 years as an initial contract to be
Sure.
able to attract the person,
yeah, oh, yeah,
because there's a cost to recruit, there's a cost to
Yep.
relocate.
Well-
So this is all part and parcel.
and one of the biggest problems that I personally have when I look at any level of government and any level of citizenry, and this is completely a personal thing. I feel like citizens of this country have got a real longevity problem. They look very, very knee-jerk, very, very short-sighted. They don't look at the long-term 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years down the line. What's the end game goal that we're going to be looking at? What am I going to leave to the next generation? So I personally think that that's a real problem that we've got on so many different levels. So I like that you guys are looking, you're looking short term, but you're also positioning long term.
I can tell you quickly, to answer that question, there are others that have gone before us that we have gone and sought information from. And they are in year 10 or year 15.
Okay.
And they're starting to reap the benefits of, major industrial parks, multi-millions of dollars, but it was,
It was hard.
it wasn't year 1, 2, and 3
No,
that these
no,
things
no.
were happening. So the commitment that at least we, and I speak for my part, but I think I'm speaking for my peers on the back of this page, is that we anticipate that this is something that we want to engage ourselves in as a long-term commitment and just continue to grow it. And that's why
Sure.
we reached out to Marshfield. Marshfield has got a different way of going about it, but we definitely need to be in touch with them, and our two mayors have spoken to this, and I think that's probably something that is somewhat unique in Wood County, that we're having those discussions, so that when someone hears of something, hey, maybe this doesn't work in my backyard, but 50 miles down the road, that'd be a great opportunity. Well, these are the things that we're doing.
And stemming out of that, I want to kind of throw a hypothetical at you. 4 or 5 years into this thing, let's just say this thing gets going. 4 or 5 years into this, a couple of your key municipality players, whoever, play your imagination. Let's say some of them decide they want to step out of it. Do you feel that you're positioned in a way with your discussions with these different individuals, businesses, municipalities, groups, that would be an issue? That there would still be momentum to carry forward, and that it would still be, the mission would still be able to be accomplished without serious hiccups, anything like that?
I think from my perspective is that this is no different than the folks in this room in the same ask. If we're not delivering, then we don't deserve to be, period.
Okay.
So, ultimately, we have to deliver.
Right.
Because I'm going to my company and asking for a sustained commitment, which we can put those dollars anywhere just like you can.
Sure.
And so to have that sustained commitment from both business and the community, we have to deliver.
Yep.
No question.
And I'm glad that you go that way, because that kind of drives me into another one, is alleviating the fears of the citizens of these different, all the different municipalities involved, including ours. Fears and concerns of those citizens who would say, and I'm assuming this is going to be an employee of Encourage, or,
Yet to be determined.
Yet to be
Sounds like
determined.
there was
Because
gonna be a
we're
board.
talking about how to support,
okay,
where to house.
because clearly it's,
May sit with as many as 3 different entities.
okay,
In the first 6 months, may live for 2 months at the city, and 2 months
Sure.
at Encourage, and 2 months at the chamber,
Sure.
and then we would determine where physically to house
right.
and support the
Because I'm
individual.
assuming that you're not looking to put this individual on Nakusa's payroll or, so this is going to be not it's gonna be a public figure, but it's not gonna be.
Project.
Right, it's not gonna be a paid public figure out of a municipality's budget.
Correct.
So in that case, when you look at like Adam's position or something like that, if there's a problem with what he would be doing, we've got recourses through the mayor's office or human resources, things of that nature to alleviate citizen concerns over that individual and what they're doing. And so how can you alleviate the citizen concerns then who might,
Pull the funding.
might pull the funding and
Jeff mentioned that we are in the process of restructuring Reggie so that we can have this in place when we hire the economic development leader.
Okay.
And that person, or that person will be reporting to that structure. And lots of the discussion has been around in these grassroots meetings with the municipalities is how are we really going to be represented? And I think the first step is for that person to build a relationship with that municipality or at least have a connection. Jason's on it, who's the Wood County budget person, Jason Grudenberg, Adam's on it, and Joe Terry from the Village of Port Edwards.
Yep.
So they are all on their boards serving or connected to their boards or
Sure.
the municipality. So, we don't want it so big that it's a hard
Right.
structure to get anything done with, but we certainly want to know that there's this balance of communicating and building that relationship with around each community's assets. So, yeah, that is something that we're sensitive to, no question.
So there's gonna have to be a good
Yeah.
communication
Yep.
structure.
Yep.
There's gonna have to be a, how do we air a grievance type
Right.
structure, and I'm sure that's going to be
Yeah.
something that you'll.
And like I said, these were just a few things that just
Nope.
jumped into me right off the bat, but.
We wanna ask as many
Right.
so that when we
Exactly.
hit council floor.
And I don't know if this is going to be a satisfactory to lots of people who raise questions. This takes a whole different set of language.
Mhm.
It's and attitudes.
You're
It's
talking Batna here, Gus.
yeah. I mean, it's really about a grassroots piece of helping institutional leaders make strides forward. It's not the institutional leaders down necessarily with the process, and so. It's a whole different way of looking at economic development, and that's why we're excited about it, because we know what is currently happening
Right.
is not going to work.
Well, we're so focused on micro, this is gonna be macro.
In the 21st century, I mean, we have to take care of ourselves now, and we can't rely on a smokestack industry coming in the way we had been for 110 years. It's going to be diversification and people working together. And that's a whole different mindset for lots of people. So any other questions?
How did you come up with that figure?
Based on the equalized values, Adam, Jason, and Joe sat down and Tim, I'm sorry, over multiple meetings. I know Tim was involved and I know a couple that
We really don't know what he does all day, to be honest.
Did you want to mention anything about it? Or?
Yeah, we kind of discussed, how, between the municipalities, how the best, come up with their share. And obviously, equalized value makes the most sense, but we also did weight the incorporated municipalities, that being the cities and villages, because from a direct benefit from tax base or where they might locate with the industrial parks, that we have a heavier share, about
Sure.
110% compared to like the 90%.
Right.
To recognize that, to make it more palatable to some of the townships and things like that.
But when we looked at it in the overall concept, we looked at an overall budget. If you think of this position, there's a position and then there's however we're gonna support it with administratives, like an office and a copier and all these good things. And we started with 200,000, 250,000, and 300,000, and we said, okay, here's the nut. And so when you think about, there's the starting piece here is that there is a grant from Encourage who is already, there's a lot of support from this that's seeding it. And then you've got the $75,000 ask from the municipalities and the other 75 for business. So there's another 100,000 basically in that's already seeded in there from the Encourage Foundation. So when you look at, put your 20,000 against 250, I guess is what I'm trying to give you as a concept. Don't just look at the municipal piece in aggregate, look at the whole piece of what we're asking. And we think that we've tried to come with an approach that created enough opportunity to have everyone have skin in the game. And the likely benefit is gonna be proportional as well. I mean, are you gonna go and put a new industry in Pittsville? Be great if we could, but what's the likelihood that it's gonna be in Pittsville versus this jurisdiction?
Well, if you don't mind shooting a target at Tim here, or shooting an arrow at Tim, since you were kind of in the discussions that came up with that number, I'm assuming then that we've passed our budget for the year.
It's in there.
This is in there.
Yeah, for the room tax,
Yep, already.
13.75% of the room tax is dedicated for economic development purposes.
Okay.
And if you remember on that thing, it's like we
40,000.
have 40,563, which would be used to fund our obligation if you.
Okay.
So this says, the resources have been directed for the Reggie's Economic, as with other community initiatives, Encourage will provide financial sponsorship of Reggie until other long-term structures are developed with this staff.
Well, it means that we had
So
to,
are we in this, I mean, is Encourage in this for 3 years, for 2 years, for 1 year, for,
Encourage has created the start.
okay.
So
And
that's
so that's what I'm
basically-
asking. So the
yeah,
200,000
the money had to be
is still,
whole, it had to be housed, we had
gotcha.
to keep it moving.
That's what I'm wondering.
That's
So
what-
that's not, okay.
It's the, what do they call it, the employment or the
bottom
employee
fund,
record
gotcha.
or for right now?
The concept is to incubate it.
Right.
So it's gonna incubate it, and then wherever it goes to,
Then it will feed itself.
whatever they
So I know we have another committee crawling the hallway. Not that I want to rush this discussion because I think we want to get as much answered prior to council as possible. Are there other questions from anyone, I guess, in the room? Other discussion questions?
I emailed a balance sheet of sorts that Tim
Yep.
prepared. He's got a paper copy if you'd like of it that just talks about the room tax
Yeah, he gave
allocation.
it.
Okay, great. It gives you a sense of what's been spent on the economic development
Right.
fund and you already approved the previous expenses.
Vinnie?
I think that, I think the gentlemen have given their time tonight. I think they deserve to have some kind of an idea what,
I
you
do
know,
too.
where we're
I
going.
mean, I had a lot of questions,
yep.
but they were answered.
Yes, you know, and not to sound too philosophical, but without great risk, there is no great reward,
So,
so.
no, I agree.
I see no reason that we shouldn't hold this thing up. I think, motion to approve, the request here, the amount of $20,715.60 to.
I love
to
the
Reggie.
60
The
cents,
60,
really?
yeah. Here, hell, here's a nickel. But no.
Every cent.
See, a motion to approve the request that we can get this onto council floor and get,
And
further
then I
debate
think
if need be.
there will be,
Yeah.
I'm sure, healthy debate.
When is the full council?
Oh, you know, we meet once a month, need it or not.
Third Tuesday?
So that would come down to the 17th. Yeah.
I'm gonna second that. So I have a motion and a second to approve moving this on to full council. Any other discussion? I'm gonna hold you guys accountable. I know where to find you. I know especially where to find you. It's my neighbor.
That's not gonna be.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. All right, so yes, the 17th, it would be very helpful. You, all of you were very, very helpful. I came into this meeting, literally whiteboard, said, I'm gonna listen, I don't know. I have obviously some concerns, and I really appreciate you taking arrows, as I think somebody said, literally just on the spot, and you did a great job, so I appreciate that.
Well, thank you, on behalf of Reggie, thank
Much
you.
appreciated.
All right,
Absolutely.
so with that, I
Thanks for your time.
entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And we're only a few minutes over into public
I'm
works.
assuming you.